very shortly in Lille for all of the World Cycling Road Championships, right through from juniors to the elite. It's the elite we are going to look at today, bringing together a rather small field of 158 riders representing 30 nations. They cover a course of 14 plus kilometers, and they'll cover that course 19 times.
This course, Phil, many of these riders know it because it's based on the same course as the Grand Prix of Plouay, the race in the west of France, which was won this year by Michele Bartoli. But the French will all be cheering for their own country today. There's Richard Virenque on the start line, and it will be certainly a great festival of cycling.
Doesn't show any signs of the worry he must be feeling, because he's in court very shortly in Lille when the Festina affair will reach its climax. There is the president of the World Cycling Body, the UCI, waiting for the OK from the timekeeper, Hein Verbruggen, and he's about to fire the gun, and away they go, 158 riders. The field has never been as big as it was pre the holding of these World Championships towards the end of August, first week of September, and even today there are big names missing, like Jan Ullrich, the Olympic champion, is not here. Neither is Alex Zülle. They're only two, and of course Lance Armstrong, but he has always said he wouldn't come.
He's always been very much against the World Championships in the latter part of the season, and it really does restrict, Phil, the number of places in the world where they can hold the World Championships, because in the northern part of Europe, as we go towards the end of October, we really will face wintry conditions.
Hardly seems a year ago in Verona when Oscar Freire, the Spanish rider who started on the front of the bunch there, became the world champion. It was a surprise, but since then he's notched 9 wins, so he's a well-known rider in the peloton now. On that occasion he beat Marcus Zeberg and Jean-Cyril Robin of France. The field then will by tradition start slowly and build up, and the survivors, well, they'll fight out the race for the rainbow jersey.
On a course like this, I would expect this race to get blown to pieces towards the end, because this is a very difficult course. Although only 14 kilometers around, it really is the repetitive nature of these slopes on the climbs here at Plouay which will blow the race to pieces. And as always, we can expect the big rivalries to come between France and Italy.
Just listen to the crowd here. This is a wonderful area. They're cycling mad. It's a fabulous place to have a World Championships, but how much nicer would it be in warm sunshine, because everybody here today has got their Wellington boots on and their overcoats, while the riders themselves have got foot warmers, as you can see, long sleeves, and some of them starting, as the rider on the left there, in long fingered gloves as well.
Well, the Spaniards will really be looking to be a dominant team in the early part of this event, because although Oscar Freira's win was somewhat of a surprise, he's come up with the goods this year and confirmed that he is a top professional cyclist, and I would think, Phil, we will see him being a major challenger again.
The Breton flag waving proudly. This is their course, and many of the people here are coming to watch all of the top cyclists fight out the world title here. They come every year to watch the top riders ride in the Grand Prix Plouay and enjoy the spectacle, but I suggest in warmer conditions. But even so, the best bike riders now before them as they head out towards the big circuit. Now, these pictures were taken at the start earlier today. We're now going to pick up the action. A breakaway of 9 has got away at 60 kilometers on the 4th circuit. The Polish team are chasing. We are approaching 10 laps to go. So this is the Polish team who have driven this race, Paul, for a number of laps. I'm not too sure of their tactics, because they must have great confidence in one member of the squad to drive it like this, and the other riders behind are quite happy to allow it.
It's a long time since we've seen a Polish squad at the World Championships quite so dedicated as this to do all of the work on the front of the main field. These guys have been in the saddle now for over 3 hours of bike racing, and I tell you one thing, the speed that it's been run off at so far, it's going to cause some pretty serious breaks in the main field in the last 2 hours.
Well, there's the gap as the clock will stop as they go through. As they drive on, the counter on the right, 10 laps still to go on this course. This is very typical of elite racing, allowing a breakaway to run and then start to drive it down. And the big bunch quite happy at the moment, and that, you see, is the danger here. This feeding station is in a rather bad and precarious place, slightly downhill. The riders come to here pretty quickly, and you know, during the races this week they've had 1 or 2 problems, and they're having it with the pros today.
This is always a dangerous point, because the helpers come further and further into the road, actually causing a natural alleyway, and that's why they do get these accidents.
There's an old ordinary or penny farthing, and I'll tell you what, they're really difficult to ride. I defy many of the professionals today to climb on the back of that. You need a lamppost first of all, and then you approach it from the back while it's totally unaware. And once you're up there, goodness knows how you get off.
Huge organisational job has been done here by the organising body here at Plouay for the culmination really of their week festival of cycling, and this is the World Professional Road Racing Championships. They call it the Elite Championships nowadays, but this is really the ultimate. These are the best men in the world, and this is part of the course, Phil, which is very difficult indeed. The thing about the course here around Plouay is there's nowhere to rest and recuperate. It's hard on all of the time.
Chance now to look at these 9 men. They got away on the 4th lap when they set the fastest lap time so far, 18 minutes and 9 seconds, an average speed of nearly 47 kilometers an hour. That's when Benetton, Jimenez, Lelekin, Diaz Justo, Bochat, Pronk, Morrow, Marichal, De Luca all got clear of the field. And now here we are on lap 10, and the time for the last lap was just over 19 minutes, so that was a very quick lap.
Very rapid lap indeed. But the strange thing I've always found about the professional road race, Phil, is it starts fairly slowly and it builds up in magnitude towards the end. And very often, if you look back through the records, you'll find that the fastest lap at a World Championships has usually been the last one.
And despite the conditions here, the crowd all the way around the circuit. Just take a look at the mud on the side of the road. People who have been camping here have been paddling the way to the fence, I think. But even so, they've stayed and stuck to the guns and enjoyed some excellent World Championship racing here. As we look down now at Christophe Moreau of France. So the French have got a man in the move. Give them an easier ride for later perhaps, because their big name's still waiting to fire at the rear of the field. This is Roger Bochat, the Swiss rider. He also has got his big team behind him.
It's a pretty dangerous rider in here as well, just sitting on the back there for Italy. Danilo De Luca, a big favourite, a man who we saw ride very well at the Giro d'Italia earlier this season, which is why I think the Italians are not chasing at all at the front of the main field. They feel quite happy having De Luca in this group. The rider from Belgium who's managed to slip in there as well, Thierry Marichal, a French-speaking rider, he too is just sitting back, not contributing too much. I think most of Belgium today, Phil, will put their hopes on the shoulders of Axel Merckx.
Well, it's unlikely the breakaway will hold them off to the finish, but there's only the Poles chasing, maybe because of the spread of the nations here. De Luca is, as Paul has said, probably the biggest name to be here. He was trying so hard to pull on the Maglia Rosa of the Giro d'Italia this year. He got himself up in the end for the stage win, and he got up the 2nd overall, but he never quite got the jersey before he gave it all up. But he's had 6 wins now this season and a real up-and-coming star of the future. There he is. He's only just over 24 years of age. He's one of those cocky riders who knows what his talent is and is prepared to show it to the world.
Certainly is a great bike rider. He was hoping to ride well at the Olympic road race as well, but he was put into 2nd position really, looking after his teammates Michele Bartoli and Paolo Bettini. They were the ones in the action, but you can see the crowd is absolutely magnificent, and there's a lot of pressure still being put on the front of that main field, Phil, by the Polish squad. And I can only really think of one name, and that must be Zbigniew Spruk, a man who has been very consistent so far this year in the one-day races, and they may well feel that today is the day that he can bring themselves a World Championships. It actually takes me back to probably, I would say, the 70s, looking at the strong Polish amateur team that used to dominate the races, riders like Ryszard Sukowski, who were absolutely magnificent, and it's really not since then that we've seen a dominant Polish team at a World Championships.
Absolutely right, but the days of the old Iron Curtain has gone now, thank heavens. And these riders are now free to be professional cyclists as well, as they set the pace. This is a Danish rider on the front here, by the way. These are the Poles, slightly different colour pattern. And I think Paul is right. There's only one name that we would contemplate being a world champion by the end of the day, and that is Zbigniew Spruk. He rides 1:10, and significant enough, he's not in this pace-making group here, so he has made them chase it down. And very typically professional riding, they're allowing the Poles, they know they've got a plan of course, but they're allowing them to bring back this breakaway if they can. It is coming down. Whether it's coming down quick enough, it's 4 minutes 18 the last time check we got.
It almost certainly will come down, because these guys are making a concerted effort on the front. This is the very technical part of the course. Having come through the start-finish line, you then head out on the large circuit, 14 kilometers around. And this part of the course, if you're sitting near the back of the main field, it is very difficult indeed, because there's always the acceleration and deceleration into these corners. And that's why, even at a World Championships level, it's so much easier to ride in the first 20-25 places.
Well, in the Espoirs race on that bend, we've just seen them come round. Heart was in the mouth of some of the riders because they completely misjudged it. Back up with the leaders now as they head under that start-finish banner again. Massive crowd cheering them on, clapping to keep warm as much as anything else as they continue to set the pace. This is Eladio Jimenez sitting at the back as we've gone back to the main field. The Kazakhstan riders are in that sort of turquoise colour with the yellow flower on it. And we'll get a time check as the riders come through. But still the Poles are not being interfered with here, enjoying their pacemaking. I think that's the word.
You can see how difficult it is at the back of the main field there. Those guys are really hammering to try and stay in contact with the wheel in front of them. But it is a pretty good combination at the front of the race at the moment, with Eladio Jimenez of Spain getting in there. A major revelation in this year's Tour of Spain. A man that I'm sure there will be a lot of fights about during the winter months, because certain teams, although he still has a current contract with the Banesto squad, certain teams are already making noises that they would like to bring him across to strengthen their squads for the coming season.
Well, it was 4:18, they're now saying 4:19 as we go out onto lap number 11. The voice there of the man who calls the Tour de France, Daniel Manjas. Terrific knowledge of the sport, and he knows every rider without referring to a note. A magnificent commentator. Thank heavens he doesn't work in television, Paul.
He's unbelievable. He can talk for hours and hours about cycling. He knows absolutely everything about these guys, and he basically earns a living covering all of the major cycling events in France throughout the year.
Well, there's a lovely picture. This really is a fabulous part of France, out on the west coast. Not very far away, in fact, from the home of Bernard Hinault, five-time winner of the Tour de France. Hinault is here, of course, and that's very typical Breton housing, with the grey slated roofs and the white painted, those steeply spired churches. And I can guarantee the bars will be absolutely buzzing as the race continues. A bit of pacemaking being done by Piotr Szymlewski. He's the Polish man at the front. His teammate here gritting his teeth, I think it's Piatek. They're all up here now. The man who's missing is Sprook. And Jalabert is there too, look.
Jalabert sitting pretty close to the front of the pack. Sprookville will sit in the main pack, probably around about 25th place at the moment. He will have a lot of responsibility put onto his shoulders there by the rest of the team, because the fact that they're chasing like this, they really are transferring responsibility to him to finish off the work that they're doing. Jalabert looking very calm and collected at the moment. He's got a World Championship title under his belt, that of the individual time trial, and he would certainly love to try and get himself a victory here in France. There next to him is Paolo Bettini with the green shoulders there of the Italian squad. Bettini's had a magnificent season so far. Davide Rebellin, the other rider in the green there, also a little further back. Italy, I think, for the moment, pretty happy having Danilo De Luca in that leading group of riders.
Been a difficult selection process for the Italians, because the sport is so popular in Italy, of course. Everybody, including the selectors, say what they feel about selection, and the public split over the decision to leave out David Rebellin and instead put in Marco Pantani. Well, he's one of the Ukrainians who's called it a day. Now, Gonchar was the top rider here. This isn't Sergei Gonchar. He's already won the World Time Trial Championship this year. And this is the sort of conditions. It's Vladimir Duma, who was the last rider, and I think the only rider, to finish for his team in the Tour of Italy, wasn't he, Paul?
He was, in fact, and he took out a stage victory, a win at the front of the main field, I should say, just behind the great breakaway by David McKenzie, Australian rider on the Linda McCartney squad. He popped out of the pack there, and nobody really knew who he was at the time. And now he's taken an early shower. Still the Poles on the front, Phil, they really are digging deep, and they're going to have to do something pretty special. They've taken 40 seconds off the advantage of those leaders right now, and still it's a very large pack for a World Championships at this stage.
Under the banner again, the gap is coming down, but ever so slowly. The clock counts on, but it was inside. Well, they're saying 4:01, but I think it's less than that, because the head of that field went under that banner. As another lap is ticked off by the driving of the Polish boys. There's no doubt they've got a plan. and the rest of the race is thanking them very much for taking them all up to the leading group, and they're offering no assistance at all. So every one of these Poles sacrificing his world title for one man. We think we've nailed down the man in Zbigniew Bruk because we can't see him, and he must have told his teammates to go and drive the race.
Well, he must feel good. He's had a very good season with a lot of placings in the individual single-day World Cup races. He's a magnificent bike rider. I'm not sure that I would rank him as a world title shot, but maybe today he's in a special day, which is why he's asked his team to come forward. And the thing is, they have really missed the boat, the Poles here, because even the French must be pretty happy with having Christophe Moreau in that leading group of riders. All the major nations at the World Championships, the French, the Dutch and the Belgians have got representatives up there, and of course the Italians too, which is why this situation has developed on the road for Poland. They're going to have to chase, and a 4.5 minute gap is a very difficult one to have to pull back at this stage of the race, because we're only just past half distance and there won't be too many Poles left with good legs towards the end with a chase like this inside them.
Well, I think as you spoke there, Paul, there's one just blown out and he's dropped away from the front. He said, "That's my lot," and I think it was Szymierski. He's gone to the back now as the rest continue. Well, although our screen a few minutes ago did say 4 minutes, we're getting checks now of 3:30, so this chase is working. It's bringing it down to very manageable performance. 19.5 minutes, very consistent laps. Remember when the break went, the pace shot up. They went through in just over 18 minutes, but they've regulated now at around 19.5, 19:40 for the 14.1 kilometre lap.
Just looking at the long line of bike riders there, you can feel the pain and the speed of this main field. But you know, it must be that they are working for Spruk this year, because Spruk has had a magnificent season in the one-day classics. Finished 4th in Milan-San Remo back in March, followed that up with a 9th place in the Tour of Flanders, 8th in the Amstel Gold Race. So he's always been looking to put in a good performance, and in fact we did see quite a lot of him at the front of the main pack in the Olympic Games, which wasn't too long ago in Sydney, but certainly under slightly different climatic conditions.
Well, I've known Zbigniew Bruk for a long time because I used to organise the British Milk Race for many years, the race director of that for 21 years, and in fact Zbigniew was one of the stars of the milk race. He used to come and ride. But look at this, Paul, an attack now by the French. Oh no, this is coming back through the cars, so I've had a flat tyre.
It's a problem. That's Jalabert who is down there. He's being paced back into the main field, and it may well be that he's had a flat tyre. There doesn't seem to be any panic at all there. He's being paced back into the race by one of his teammates, and there's a Dutchman just sitting on the back there for the ride.
Well, if you've got the puncture, early is better than later. Jalabert, though, returning to the fold in many ways here to represent his country, because he's had a bit of a fallout over the last couple of years on the anti-doping policy and the exterior testing of riders, and the fact that he's moved to live in Switzerland away from the French, rides for a Spanish team, etc. Lost a lot of favour amongst the officials, but they've let him back in now, and he would love a result, because at the end of the year he apparently is going to leave Oncé, and then he'll be looking to come in to a French team.
He also has a problem that he doesn't have a contract signed at the moment. He actually declared that he wanted to have his contract signed and sealed before he went along to the Olympic Games. Well, that didn't happen at all, and in fact now he's still getting towards the end of the season without a contract for the coming year.
Big Tom Leaper, I think it is, we caught a glimpse of Australia there. Just move up on the outside. It's only 4 Australians started today. Jay Sweet, the sprinter. Scott Sunderland, who was rather miffed he was not selected for the Australian team for the Olympic Games. He appealed that decision but lost, and he's got good form at the moment. Stuart O'Grady is in here, fresh after his crash. Well, not fresh, but since his crash in the Tour de France. He rode in the Olympic Games, but not with any real distinction. And Tom Leaper we've just seen.
It's Francesco Casagrande just on the left with the green. Laurent Brochard in the middle. Brochard riding very well this year, almost got himself a stage victory at the Vuelta a España not too long ago. Coming into the city of Avila just towards the end. There's Scott Sunderland there in the Australian jersey with the glasses on.
Scott is just the man, Paul, to throw a surprise at us today, because he's very annoyed about his non-selection for Australia, especially in his own country. The Olympic Games were in the state of New South Wales. He's a New South Welshman. He comes from Inverell, so he desperately wanted to ride those games but didn't make it, and he's up here at the head of the race. One gets the feeling now that the Polish team are tiring, but they are still closing in on those leaders, which are beginning to show signs of raggedness. We're not seeing too many pictures of them, but when we do see them, there are signs of riders getting a little bit tired now. New Italian team colours off to the right with the green tops of the jersey.
This is Piotr Wadecki on the front, one of the riders of the Moroz team. The only fully fledged international team from Poland, a very well-drilled squad. They take part in many races all over the international circuit, and just now they're riding an excellent race. The Polish team have really got themselves organized today, but they should have had a man in that breakaway because every other major nation was represented. The tactics at the World Championships are always very strange indeed, because it's always a big battle between France and Italy, and everybody else very often just seems to be along for the ride.
Just caught a glimpse there of number 1, Oscar Freire, last year's winner, riding near the head too, but not overdoing it. He's a marked man, of course, now, 1 year on, 9 wins, and a real challenger, recognised by the pelotons, a man for the future. Had this back problem all year, which he hopes to get sorted out as he runs out of his season now. Still, of course, a rather exciting and very interesting Tour of Lombardy to come, with Andre Schmil now showing a challenge to Eric Zabel for that championship. And Schmil starting today, one of the favourites. Another non-starter today, by the way, Abraham Olano. He's gone back home to Spain.
Well, he was a little bit surprised at not taking out the win in the individual time trial. He was the #1 favourite, fresh from the Olympic Games. He felt as if he would have won the event, and he blamed it on bad communication between himself and his manager. But I have always thought that if you go out to win a time trial, you have to ride as hard as you can for as long as you can. So I think maybe the form just wasn't there.
And of course, no Andrea Taffi on the Italian squad, and there's no one more disappointed than he after winning the Paris Tours in such fine style. And when you look down the list of riders who have made the Italian squad, you really do have to ask the question, why leave out Andrea Taffi?
Well, Taffi, whether or not he's won a lot of races this year, is always a man to be counted on for the team. He's always the kind of rider who will work beautifully as a domestique, and surprisingly enough, they have left him out. And he'll probably be watching this at home now, not very happy, thinking, if I'd have been there, I'd have been ripping this race to pieces right now.
Back up with the leaders. That's Jimenez at the back of the race. Well, he was. He's not at the back of the race now. That's Marichal who's come to the back. There's 2 Spanish riders in this group, enough to keep a worry over the field behind, although neither would be expected to be world champion by the end of the day. As Geert Pronk of the Rabobank squad sets the pace here at the front. This is Tilly Marichal.
The Russian rider in there is Lelekin. He's fairly young, 27 years of age. These riders now, Phil, really are realizing that the chase is on behind as Marichal leads them up to the end of the lap. In second place, that is Pronk. But Christophe Moreau must be feeling quite happy about this race situation. And looking at Danilo De Luca there in the Italian jersey, he doesn't actually seem to be flying all of that well at the moment. He's actually having a hard time staying on the wheel of the man in front of him. So we may well see another change in tactics later on. If the Italians get wind that in fact their man Danilo De Luca is not riding too well, I think they will come to the front as well and start to chase.
Well, I think this is attack time here. They've decided these 9 riders are getting a little bit cumbersome. They know that the Polish train is reducing it, and they're trying to split the field here as they come up this very nasty drag. It'll get worse too as the race goes on, because that is Roger Bochat who has got on the train, and Geert Pronk is tagged on, but there's a few missing now.
That really has split the field. Marichal really put the hammer down, and that has reduced the number of riders. And I think that is not going to be a great move for them, because we've now seen the 2 Spanish riders there being left behind. The other French rider who was in that break earlier on, Beneteau, he has now been slumped to the rear as Christophe Moreau decides to come forward now and accelerate on the slopes of this climb. All of the French riders must be on a serious high here today, because they are racing on a circuit which in the month of August sees around about 250,000 spectators witnessing the Grand Prix of Plouay. 5 riders now leading the race, but behind, the riders from Poland really are doing an excellent job, and they're slowly but surely eating into the advantage of this breakaway.
Well, this is a surprise. Tilly Marichal trying to split the field. He's not a rider of great note. I'm just wondering what his tactic is. A couple of tours under his belt. He's ridden the last 2 editions and finished both of them rather lowly, but nonetheless, to finish the Tour de France is a tremendous achievement.
Well, the 2 Spaniards have been caught here. One is Eladio Jimenez, and the other is Rafael Diaz Justo. And the other rider caught out in that split was the Russian rider Sergei Lelekin. If they can integrate over the top of this climb, they will reform to make a 9-man leading group. But looking back, it looks as if they've already lost around about 20 seconds from the 5 riders who are leading right now.
168 kilometres done. 5 of the original 9 that got clear around the 60-kilometre point. So they've been 100 kilometres together. The 2 Spanish riders are being dispatched backwards, as too is Walter Benito, the Frenchman, and the Russian rider Lelekin. Marichal was the troublemaker, 27-year-old. He's got 2 wins this year, including finishing second overall in the Circuit Franco-Belge. A very good result for him, so he's got his form at the right time.
Christophe Moreau has decided what his tactic is going to be as we get confirmation of the group there. Although I did say that Danilo De Luca looked under pressure, he's still in this leading group of 5, and so that will take the pressure off the Italian squad behind. Walter Benito, by the way, in the second group on the road there for France, won the Circuit de l'Orne, which is not too far away from here. It used to be known as the Criterium of Châteaulin, and it was always the great big revenge match after the World Championships, when the World Championships were held in August. So that was a big win for him, and he too is a rider from not very far away from here, from Nantes, and was a member of Jean-René Bernardeau's Vendée U development squad.
Slipping to the back now, 101. Mate Pronk, I think I called him Gert Pronk earlier. Gert, who was an ex-speed skater, that's having too many memories, I think. Gert is now out of it, but this is Mate Pronk, who's up in the breakaway. Sits at the back, and it's a good move by the youngster as well.
Christophe Moreau is the strongest rider in the group right now, and it'd be nice to go back to the main field and just see if any of the other teams have decided to come forward, because the news must certainly have gone back now that the 2 Spanish riders who were in this group have been left behind, and that will change the whole look of this bike race. Obviously the Belgians will be fairly happy with the presence of one of their riders in here, but one man on the Belgian squad has actually axed the whole of the end of the season towards this World Championships, and that's André Schmeel, recently second in the Paris Tours World Cup race. He is looking for the big win here, and in fact declined selection for the Olympic Games to concentrate on winning the World Championships.
Well, he's going to thank the Poles that they catch up. The Italians are hovering. Look, all of them with the green jerseys on. Still 4 Poles setting the pace, and no one is assisting them. The pace, though, is registering the fact that they are bringing them all back. Ever so slowly is the case, but the gap is closing. They should be inside 3.5 minutes at the next time check we get.
I think it's a bit strange to be looking at a World Championships and have names like Jan Ulrich, Lance Armstrong and Alex Zuller absent from the starting list. A real reflection that the majority of the big names can't hold on till the end of the season, and unfortunately we have had good World Championships, but maybe not all of the best riders in the world are present at the latter part of the season.
In a couple of years' time, these championships on these dates will be in Canada. Well, I am assured that it's an area where the snow doesn't come that early. Let's hope they're right, because otherwise we would be in trouble. But there is a rumour actually coming out of these championships that they are seriously considering now moving the titles back into the end of the summer season, which will be August into September, where of course they always were. I think it's fair enough now, because the Tour of Spain has been a very successful move from April to September, a race in its own right now, much more interesting than it was, and so I think the change is ready.
Absolutely. Christophe Moreau, the larger rider there, rode absolutely superbly in the Tour de France, finishing 4th overall, just losing out in the final time trial to his own teammate Joseba Belocchi. But Danilo De Luca, having gone through that bad patch, is really being encouraged now by the crowd, and what a magnificent crowd this is through the finishing area, Phil. I would say there are in excess of 350,000 spectators today, and if the weather had been good, they were expecting 500,000.
Well, watch the clock, 7 laps to go. These 5 riders must now be feeling the Polish cold air coming up from behind. These are the 4 that were dropped from that group of 9. Remember, they went away on the 4th circuit. We're now 7 from the end of the 19. And they know they're resigned to the fate now that shortly they'll be the first to see the Polish boys close it down.
Well, the fire has gone out of these guys now, and they will know that fairly shortly they will feel the breath of the Polish squad on their backs, because the Poles are doing a magnificent job on the front of the main field, trying to pull this race back together. And the fact that that leading group now has split into 2 groups of 5 and 4, I think we will see the whole race coming back together, but it's going to be a long, hard chase by the Poles. This group now of 4, Phil, just inside 1 minute in arrears of the leading group of 5.
Yes, they've more or less given up now. Once they've dropped, there's no point in continuing on. You may as well just ride round till the peloton picks you up and see if there's any left in those legs. Back into the danger zone. Which is there's the French with all the bags hanging out. But it looks as though Francis Moreau, yes, he got one. He's had an unfortunate season this year. He's had 2 crashes very early on. Francis Moreau broke his collarbone in the first one, then fractured his skull in the second. But at least he's got himself back into form.
Second group of 4 riders here. The 2 Spaniards on the front there, Diaz Justo and Eladio Jimenez. Jimenez taking a stage victory in the Vuelta a España, and certainly regarded by many as one of the great Spanish hopes for the future. A huge turnaround in Spanish cycling, when a few years ago one wouldn't have expected to see the Spanish being so competitive in the one-day World Championships. But since Abraham Olano took their first title in Colombia, and then followed that up last year with a win by Oscar Freire, I think they're fancying their chances today. And Oscar Freire, for me, Phil, still has to be a super chance at the finish, because this circuit is not a circuit for the major climbers. And if it's a group of riders of 25 or 30 left towards the end, then really Oscar Freire has a chance of being one of the rare world champions to take the title twice on the road.
Well, that would be rather nice for Freire, especially after his surprise victory last year, but his great season that has followed since. De Luca on the left of our picture, man of quality, I think, and we'll be very happy the way things are going. With 7 laps to go, here's the bunch. Now, are they coming to the start-finishing line? If so, the clock will be on them. It's not long since the leaders have gone through. They are getting much closer than they were. It was 3.5 minutes, but I think the effort by the Poles has slashed that right down now.
Still an awful lot of bike riders left in the event at the moment. The amazing thing about the World Championships is it's this constant pressure, and there you can see the Spaniards fill in about 10th position there, still looking pretty comfortable, pretty happy with the situation. Axel Merckx was still in the main field there, looking quite comfortable, and Gordon McCauley, I think I caught a sign off there, the Kiwi rider. Just 2 Kiwis in the field here, one Chris Jenner, the other McCauley. And looking down there, you can see that there is still a very large field left in the professional World Championships.
Well, these boys haven't really turned the pedal in anger. They've sat behind the poles. There's the gap, though. Still quite a considerable one. They've really held on here. 3:24 it is now at 7 to go.
That's really going to hurt the Polish team later on, and everybody else for the moment pretty happy just to sit back and allow them to set all the pace-making at the front. Alexander Vinokurov still in the main field. A glimpse of him. There's the other Estonian rider, Jan Kirsipu. Kirsipu, another man that if the race doesn't toughen up towards the end there, in fact, is Andre Schmeel, still looking very comfortable. Strange way to eat a bottle, but maybe he's just found a different way of drinking.
He'll never get it down, no matter how hard he tries. But Schmeel will feel things are under control just now. There's a nice view again of the town of Vluet. This race on the outskirts. The town itself is full of narrow streets, and you couldn't run the race through there. So they're on the outskirts here as the peloton, still a big one, speeds on its way, still working out how they're going to close the gap, because the last time round it was 3.5. They've only knocked 7 seconds off this time, and that's not an indication they're going to wipe them out yet. The Poles are going to request some help soon, I think.
Well, 54 seconds, that group of 4 is in arrears of the leading group of 5 in the main field, 3.5 minutes behind right now, and all of the pressure, Phil, still coming from that Polish squad. These are the 4 riders caught in the middle. Walter Beneteau is number 25, rides for the Bonjour team, and the 2 Spaniards, they really did get caught out there, Diaz Justo and Eladio Jimenez. And Sergei Lelekin, well, I think he's just pretty happy to be there, because Lelekin is not a rider on one of the top international teams. In fact, this is the first time I've seen Lelekin racing, and he must be pretty happy to be at the front of the World Championships. A big chance for a rider like him to interest the sponsors and possibly ride into a professional squad for next season.
Well, Beneteau there got round his first Tour de France this year. He's only a youngster. Another one of the fines, I think. Finished 71st, but the fact was he finished, and he seems to have come here determined to establish at least an impression on the event.
Well, another team coming to the front now. It may well be red and white, but this time, in fact, it's the Danish team have decided to send 1 or 2 riders further forward. They've seen the big pressure that the Poles have been put under and decided now is the time to come forward and help out in the organisation at the front of this pack. And now that we are getting another team interested, it may well be a time that the main group in front will start to get pulled back. The thing about the Danish team is we did see a very impressive Rolf Sorensen a week ago in Paris Tours, and it may well be that Rolf is looking for the biggest title of his career. He's won almost every major one-day race that there is on the calendar, but he's never been world champion.
This is the dangerous stretch. We've had quite a few little tumbles here with the women juniors and the espoirs coming down this section. And the sharp left hand, I think it's Alan Johansson who's on the front. He's a sort of elder statesman now of the Danish riders, but even so, he was a late turning professional and he is a strong man, so they'll welcome him at the front, and the Poles could do with a break anyway, because I don't know how many laps they've been chasing, at least 4.
It's been very difficult for them, and this is the technical part of the course, and I tell you one thing, you don't want to be in 30th or 40th position right now, because you're hanging right onto the wheel of the rider in front of you. There are the 4 riders who were caught in no man's land, so they're just about to get brought back into the fold, and so now the race situation will be the 5 leaders with the rest of the main pack together.
About to swoop round a roundabout, and the 4 riders rounded first on the inside track. There's the field right onto them now, so the field will soon work out they haven't got them all if they didn't know already, and they'll assess who they've caught and who they haven't. There they are, the 2 Spanish, the Russian and the Frenchman are back in the fold. Where's the other Spanish rider? He'll be around somewhere.
Well, now that this situation has happened on the road, I think we may well see Spain coming forward as well, Phil, because Oscar Freire must certainly be a serious challenger for the title if they can keep a large group together. And it seems for the moment as if there hasn't been too much devastation at the back of this pack, and it is a very large group. The whistles and the shouts going forward now from the Poles. The Poles realizing that Spain now don't have any riders in the front, so they've cut off the power, they've set up, and now I think we will see a change in the front of the main field.
I think you're right. They've now said that the other boys have got no excuse now for not giving us a hand, so if they won't do it, then we won't bother either. And the reaction coming straight away from Spain. That was a good decision by the Polish riders, otherwise these boys would have thanked them all the way to the finish and then taken the medals. Now Spain go out on the attack.
Well, that's a bit strange. Spain there not really wanting to come to the front and organise a chase and deciding to launch a man off the front. Not a very sensible move at this stage in the game, because those riders are still more than 2.5 minutes in front, and trying to ride across a gap like that at the World Championships is basically a waste of energy.
Well, he's a tall boy, and the tall boy which comes to mind is Martin Perdeguero, who is on the attack here. And the riders try to reorganise themselves to see if they can get the counter-action going. Remember that there's still 5 riders, 3 minutes and 20 seconds ahead.
This is a tough course. You can actually see, looking at the pavement out there as well, that it's not a smooth surface here. These Breton roads, the small roads away from the main highways, are very, very rough, and they're not really rolling it along as well. It's very difficult to get any kind of moving. This in fact looks very much like Jose Enrique Gutierrez, who's going forward.
I told you it's Perdeguero, didn't I?
I know you did. You've always been good on your Spanish riders. You can see that was a clever move though by the Spanish. This is how he got away. He had a teammate on his wheel there, and as soon as they got to the front of the pack, he sat up and allowed this man to go clear. But I don't think he's too far off the front of the main pack right now.
What a great season Kelme have had too, running out team winners in the Tour de France. Wonderful performance, and challenges all of the way. And now we've got Heras, winner of the Tour of Spain. Rumours, by the way, he might move across to Lance Armstrong's side.
Well, that would be an incredible move for the US Postal Service team, though he does still hold a valid contract with the Kelme squad. It is an interesting move for him to move across there. He said that he made those contacts well before the Tour of Spain. He's very interested to ride along Armstrong and learn how to ride time trials. He feels that he would be a much more improved rider riding alongside Armstrong for a couple of years, and maybe then have a crack at winning the Tour de France overall. The main field coming up towards the finishing area. Still a huge pack of riders, Phil. Nobody yet has managed to break the stranglehold, and not really a very clever tactical move by the Spanish right now, because they do have a serious challenger for the win in Oscar Freire, and they need to get themselves pretty much organised at the front of the pack if they're going to pull that leading group of 5 back.
Well, this man's proving to be a nice little carrot here now, or a nice large carrot actually, in Gutierrez. So we're looking down, riders trying to get away from the front of the pack. The sign writers have been busy. Well, this is an interesting attack. The Polish rider still setting the pace, trying to keep everybody on the toes. It's a tough one. This is Piotr Radecki, the Moroz rider. He's had a good day. There are 3 riders on the Moroz team made the selection for the Polish team, and I think they've got 8 men on the start line today.
Wadecki wearing a slightly different jersey to the rest of the team there, and I'm not sure that's allowed at the World